Welcome. We are talking about getting out of your comfort zone abroad today with AIFS Abroad and our alumni ambassadors. Wade, I think you are our only prospective student in attendance, so feel free to share any questions that you have. We will also be recording this session for future reference, so please share your video accordingly, however you feel comfortable. So we'll go ahead and get started. I'll go through a few introductory slides to AIFS Abroad if you're not familiar with us, and then we will get more into the conversation portion of the session. So my name is Katie Ryan. I'm on our university relations team with AIFS. I'm based in Philadelphia, and I work with our university partners in the Mid-Atlantic and Southeast. So AIFS Study Abroad has been around since 1964. We offer a wide range of study abroad programs for the semester, for the summer, and over the January term or winter break. Our programs range in length from 2 weeks to 1 year in, again, 35 cities around the world, so lots of different options. Over the summer, we also offer multi-country traveling programs across multiple destinations. Generally, our programs have no language requirements, and we generally have coursework in English available on almost all of our program locations. We're able to work with all majors, and students are able to fulfill major requirements, minor requirements, electives, general education requirements on our study abroad programs. We do work with graduating high school seniors through graduating college seniors, so students who are in their term after graduation are still able to attend AIFS programs. And we do guarantee our fees in US dollars, so students don't need to worry about conversion rates as they relate to the program fees. So we try to make our program fees as all-inclusive as possible. This includes housing guaranteed and arranged by AIFS. Usually students are able to choose between a homestay or residence or dorm style housing, depending on the program. We do include a meal plan or stipend. They look a little bit different depending on the housing option that the student chooses or the program location. So this may be a meal voucher on campus or meals with your homestay family. We have a resident director and on-site staff that are there to support students on all of our program locations. They're there to assist you from the beginning with an orientation, and of course, are great resources throughout your term abroad. They coordinate activities and excursions, but are also a great resource in case of emergency. We do include a variety of excursions which take you further out of the city or in some cases the country where you're studying abroad, as well as weekly cultural activities like cooking classes, museum visits, outdoor activities that are more local to the city where you're studying. We do include comprehensive health and travel insurance, and students have the option to book their international round trip flight through AIFS if you'd like to. And then of course we have robust alumni programming. So when you come back from your study abroad experience, you can stay involved as an ambassador, like our lovely ambassadors here today, or in a volunteer capacity if you'd like to. So our focus today is about getting out of your comfort zone abroad. I included a few examples here that are mostly related to our program structure. And I'm excited to hear our alumni's perspective. But as I was thinking about this topic, what kept coming up for me are ways to immerse yourself more fully in your community abroad as ways to really get yourself out of your comfort zone. So students that I work with are oftentimes reluctant to maybe choose a homestay because you are living with a family that you don't know, but oftentimes I hear from returning students that that was their favorite part of the experience and that they're still in touch with their homestay family. Service learning and internships are a great way to get to know another part of the community that you might not be in daily contact with on the formal study abroad program. Again, those activities and excursions. Intercambios are language exchange programs. Again, ways for you to meet local students in your community. They can practice their English and you can practice the local language. Many students are able to get involved in activities at the local university or in the local communities. So I'm excited to hear some examples of how our alumni did that. And I would also argue that a lot of this really comes with challenging yourself daily, trying a food you're unfamiliar with, practicing your language. But with this, I would love to open up to our alumni. I'd like each of you to first introduce yourselves. So if you could just share your name, your home university, and when and where you studied abroad. We will start with Morgan. You're the first one on my screen.
Hi guys, I'm Morgan. I'm a senior at Miami University in Oxford, Ohio, and I studied abroad in London, England in the spring of 2020.
Great, thank you, Morgan. Adriana, you're up next.
Hi everyone, my name is 𝗟𝗘𝗧'𝗦. I'm a senior at Western Kentucky University, and I also studied abroad in London in the summer of 2019.
All right, Patrick.
Hi, everyone. My name's Patrick with 𝗟𝗘𝗧'𝗦. I studied abroad in Florence, Italy during spring 2020, and I'm a senior at Curry College.
Thank you. And Lauren, if your Wi-Fi allows.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lauren 𝗟𝗘𝗧'𝗦. I'm currently a senior at the University of Texas at Austin, and I studied abroad in Salzburg, Austria in the fall 2019 semester.
Thank you. Okay, so I'd love to hear from you to begin why you chose your study abroad location in particular.
I can start. So I chose London because it is a really big city, and within the city there's so much to do and so much to experience, and I wanted that city life where I would, be able to go to different restaurants, museums, and explore little pockets of a bigger city. So that's why I chose London.
That's great. Yeah, I think London can be almost anything you want it to. There's something for everybody. Would anybody else like to share any of the factors that went into choosing your study abroad location?
For me, my classes were really important. So being an English major, going to London sort of seemed natural. And I got the opportunity to take classes where I wasn't just learning in a classroom. I got to go and see landmarks or theater shows related to my classes. I was in a Shakespeare and a British literature class, and those are obviously experienced a lot better if you get to take them in London as opposed to in Bowling Green, Kentucky. So I really wanted to have classes that related to the city and location I was studying in.
Perfect. Yes, what better place to study English language? And great segue to my next question, which is what classes, including language classes, did any of you take that took you outside of your comfort zone? And as a secondary question, how would you say the academic system while you were studying abroad differed from your home university?
I can start that one. So definitely for me, the class that really pushed me outside my comfort zone was my Italian language class. I've never spoken Italian before, so it was definitely an interesting experience, but it was awesome because not only did it push me out of my comfort zone in class, but throughout the city having to use it and being able to use it was a very uncomfortable experience the first few times, but I'm very thankful for it. And now I know Italian and I was able to talk to locals. And then for the second part of the question, it differed a lot because it was more of a reading based, we would read for our homework and then we'd come and we'd discuss it. There wasn't a lot of written assignments. It was mostly like a group conversation, which I really liked compared to here where there's a lot of more written work and essay work. It was more about kind of talking and having a discussion more so.
Thank you so much for sharing. Yes, we hear frequently from our students, especially those that study in Europe, that they, may only have 2 assignments for the whole semester, a midterm and a final, and much less of those busy work assignments throughout the term. So that's great feedback. Thank you. Would anybody else like to share any experience related to your classes?
I can also say the classes I took, I took a museum class, and each week we went to a different museum around London. And obviously here at Miami, I've normally just going to a classroom in a building and sitting there for an hour or 2 and leaving. So it was really cool to immerse myself in what I was learning by going to those museums.
That's great feedback too. And I'm sure those excursions related to your classes took you to parts of the city that you might not have explored or known about otherwise. So a great way to get out of your comfort zone too. Would anybody like to share any, outside of your classes, any excursions or activities that were part of the AIFS program that helped you to expand your comfort zone?
Yeah, I can share on that. So I went on a lot of the excursions, and just those in general helped me like meet new people or talk to people both within and without of my program that I didn't see on a daily basis. So that was helpful. But the excursion that made me step out of my comfort zone the most was the Paris one. There was like an optional Paris excursion that was over the weekend, and I was really excited for it when I first signed up because why wouldn't I do this? And then the week leading up to it, I got so panicked and nervous because of the amount of warnings I got about watch out for pickpocketers, watch out for the language. The people there are going to be vicious to you. Like they're just going to hate you. And I was like, oh, was this the best decision? And back home, I can sort of like talk myself out of things. And I do this a lot by avoiding things. But I couldn't avoid an excursion to Paris. Like even I knew that, like that would be silly to not go just because of those anxieties. So even though I chose to do the excursion, obviously I was kind of forced to go out of my comfort zone when like it was to the point that I almost wasn't excited to go anymore because of how nervous I made myself. And then I got there and I was like completely fine. This is sort of something I just learned by doing. But when it comes to all like the warnings people give you about like other cultures and especially cities and how they may treat you, as long as you're like respectful and aware, 95% of the time you're going to be fine. And that was the case for me. Like, I know there may have been, some other people who were not as respectful as they could have been. So their experience was different. But it really taught myself, like, if I could go back, I wish I would have like not worried so much the week leading up to it and just like been more excited about the program, because I really did spend a week just so stressed about like a random Paris person being mean to me. And then I had no people be mean to me. So it just kind of really taught me a lot about like, not letting anxieties get the best of you, and then learning what happens. Like I said, I couldn't avoid it like I normally do home. And then I ended up having a really good experience because I didn't avoid it.
I'm so glad to hear that you were able to have a positive experience, and you're making me laugh because I had similar reservations about going to Paris. You hear so often that Parisians are like very cold and rude, and I had a lovely experience myself. So, but agreed, I think, it's a fine line too between researching and making yourself paranoid. Like, obviously pickpocketing is present in Paris and in other European cities, and it's important to know that, but sometimes you can make yourself so nervous before you go by over researching. So thank you for sharing that experience. Let's see. I'm curious if any of you could share any activities that you did outside of class to help expand your comfort zone. So maybe outside of the formal study abroad program.
Yeah, so one thing that I did to kind of like outside the classroom is like love to work out and I love to go to workout classes. And so I downloaded an app called ClassPass, and I was able to sign up for a bunch of different workout classes all around London. And it was like really great because not only was I getting out of my comfort zone and like exploring different parts of London, I was also getting to meet like locals from all over the city who were just going to take like their normal, weekly workout class. And I was just a student there. And so I was able to meet a lot of cool people and explore a lot of new like pockets of the city while doing so, which was super cool.
That's a great piece of advice. I didn't realize ClassPass was international. That's a great way to really explore the city and meet others, as you said. Any other examples from our alumni?
I can share too. One thing I did was that I volunteered while I was abroad, and through our resident director helped us set up going into basically like K through 8 German schools or Austrian schools, but they spoke primarily German. And it was kind of an exchange for us to help us learn German and to help the students, help them learn English. And that was definitely outside my comfort zone because I was just starting to learn German, and also I'd never, done anything with teaching. That's not anything related to my major or anything like that. So that was definitely pretty far outside my comfort zone, but it was a really great experience because I got to learn more about like what it's like to actually grow up in Austria, because I was working with middle school girls. So that was a really cool experience for me.
That's great. Do you feel like you learned more German or they learned more English?
I think they learn more English.
Great.
But I still learned some, so it's good.
Good. Glad to hear. Okay, some of you have touched on this already through several examples, but how did you approach meeting new people and making friends abroad?
Yeah, I can start with this one. So I'm a pretty big introvert and it takes me a while to warm up to people. And I was on a summer program specifically. So I was worried ahead of time, like, is this enough time for me like to meet people? Like it takes me more than 6 weeks to like warm up to people back home. But one of the mindsets I had to have was on the one hand, when it came to meeting like other study abroad people, other people in my program, most of them are in the same mindset as you are. Like most of them also probably don't know someone else. If they do, it's maybe like one person if they're lucky. And they also want to meet new people. So it was sort of like stepping outside of my comfort zone and doing things I wouldn't normally. Like back here, I wouldn't just sit with someone I like vaguely recognize from Excursion and say hi to them. Like that's weird. But it's sort of like a different mindset. And that's what I had to do if I wanted to meet new people. And I met a lot of people and a lot of friends just by like talking to them at an excursion or sitting next to someone who I had just met in class like 20 minutes ago. And so that was really helpful for me to realize that. And I sort of just had to like switch a part of my brain to be like, okay, you can be a slightly different Adriana than like you normally are, but like this is what you got to do in like a different environment. And then when it came to just meeting new people, like in general, like both on my who were like studying abroad and also just locals or other people that I met, I was really intimidated at first. Like I was like, again, I guess like just the paranoia that people were going to be like mean to me. I'm just always afraid of that, but especially when you're in like a different place. And you just have to remember that like they're people too. And even if like, I mean, British culture is like a Western culture, so it's slightly the same as it is here, but it's also, a city in general is really different than Kentucky. So you have to make like respectful of like what they want. Like, don't go yelling on the tube ride. That's not a way to like meet good people in a positive manner. But at the same time, like just showing like kindness to people, and just like, like reaching out in general. Most people are like, they may not want to like become your best friend right away, but they want to meet other people too. So just sort of getting that little like anxiety away that everyone's going to judge you and that they're just people too.
Thank you. That's a great point about other students on the program. With our AIFS programs, there likely will be students from universities all over the US. So you do sort of have, as Adriana said, a group of others who are in the same boat, who don't know others in the community and who are new and experiencing a lot of the same things that you are. I'm excited for this next question. What foods did you try that expanded your palate?
So I tried a lot of different foods. I took an Italian food and culture class. So part of our class was just going to local food markets throughout Florence and like trying different things. And our professor had like a budget from the school so he could buy us all samples from the local markets for us to try. One of like the things that's kind of common in the US is like truffles and like truffle oil. But I was always so scared. He was talking about like mushrooms and how it's like, you know what I mean? I was like, oh my God, I don't think I'd like that. And then he bought us like a ravioli that had it inside, and it was one of the best things that I've ever had. And now I get it whenever I go out to an Italian restaurant now. But he really kind of pushed us outside of our comfort zone. And he's like, you could just get the typical spaghetti with sauce and, stay in your comfort zone, but there's so much more to Italian food. I'm so glad he pushed us outside our comfort zone on that area, because there's so much good food out there that I wouldn't have tried if it wasn't for him.
I would like to take that class, please. That sounds fantastic. Any other foods that you all would like to share?
Yeah, I'll also add, I think kind of along the same lines, I generally used to be kind of a picky eater and would eat more like plain. Like I didn't like getting a bunch of like condiments or like seasoning, stuff like that. But I kind of just ate whatever was in front of me pretty much while I was abroad. And I like really made a conscious effort to do that. And in Austria, a huge aspect of culture is like cafe culture, and they're very big on like pastries and things like that. And they all have like different fillings and stuff like that. And usually the textures of those would bug me, but I just really like made a conscious effort to try them. And actually some of them were so good. And so then I started eating that and kind of just adding that to every meal that I was making during the week. And then also Austria, of course, is famous for like sausages and pretzels and stuff like that, very Bavarian culture sort of stuff. And they have probably 30 different types of mustards that you can use, and they're all so good. So those were, I think, the biggest things that changed that I still incorporate too in my diet back home now.
Great. Yeah, thank you for bringing up cafe culture too. I know that's so big in many of our study abroad destinations. So even beyond trying new specific foods, maybe trying new like eating habits, or taking that coffee break with your Spanish or Italian classmates or coworkers, and kind of adapting to those different food cultures is important. And Lauren, you touched on the next question, which is there anything you did abroad which was challenging at the time that you've incorporated into your life back in the US?
For me, it was doing things by myself. This was like when I was abroad, this was challenging first because I'm really bad at directions. So I just wasn't convinced that like I could get to other places by myself. But also like back home, like I don't really do things by myself unless it's something that's like in my mind accepted. So like I'll get coffee by myself if I'm going to do homework because like that's a normal thing to do, but I wouldn't necessarily like go shopping by myself or see like a movie by myself because just in my mind, like you just don't do that. And I also never like ventured out anywhere I've never been before by myself. Stemming back to the whole thing, like, oh, I'm going to get lost because I'm bad with directions. But within like the second half of my program, especially, I did almost all of my things by myself. Like I was going like halfway across the city by myself. I was navigating new places. And like back home, my parents were like, we were so surprised you did that. And I was surprised myself. I beforehand thought that like maybe like I'll do a few things by myself, but I definitely didn't imagine that I would just like, spend almost the entire day going around the city like by myself. But it was what I needed to do if I wanted to do a lot of the things I wanted to, just because, it doesn't always work out that you can go with a friend because they may be busy or they may have other plans. So I just had to do it. And then I got used to it. And then I really liked it. And so obviously right now things are really weird because of the pandemic. But before all that happened, when I came back, if there was something I wanted to do and like, I couldn't get a friend to go with me, I would just go. Like I used to never like go see a movie by myself if like I didn't know another friend who wanted to go see it, and I did that all the time and it was just not weird. And like the same thing, like if there was I can't think of another example off the top of my head, but like, oh, going shopping. Like if I wanted to go shopping, I would see if someone else wanted to go with me, or if people had plans, or if I just wanted to go then, like I would just go and do it by myself. And it was completely normal. And I don't think I would have gotten to that place as quickly if I hadn't done it in a completely different city where I really didn't know where I was going some of the times.
That's a great example, Adriana. And I think you're right. The sense that you're studying abroad for a limited time, and you all probably had a bucket list of things you wanted to do and see. And I'm glad that you were able to push yourself a bit to make sure that you were able to do all of those things, whether or not you had somebody to go with you. I'd love to know, how did going outside of your comfort zone while you were studying abroad change you now that you're back in the US?
I can start with this one. So I would say in multiple ways. Some things that were outside of my comfort zone prior to studying abroad, such as I'm typically very type A, and so I like to organize and plan things ahead of time. But being abroad, no matter how much you plan, like things just do either go wrong or go differently than how you planned. And so that was like a huge lesson for me to learn, and then I've been able to incorporate that back here as well. So that's one way that I've changed. I think I'm a lot more able to kind of roll with the punches, and I'm a lot more confident doing that and not feeling the need to plan everything out. And I think especially going into 2020, that was really crucial to, being able to like adjust to all the twists and turns of this lovely year we've had. So I think those are some of the main ways. And also just, it's made me more, I guess, how should I even phrase it? It showed me that there's more to life than what's inside my comfort zone, because being comfortable all the time can kind of feel a lot like complacency. And now that I've kind of experienced the opposite of that through studying abroad, I am a lot more afraid of staying in my comfort zone than staying out of it. And so I think that's a pretty huge way that I've changed, and especially looking forward, as I'm about to graduate this spring, I'm like not really afraid of that. And I think I owe that entirely to studying abroad, because I don't think I would have gotten to that place if I hadn't been abroad, where I was kind of constantly forced to adjust and not plan things and, you know, have that self-confidence. So those are some pretty big ways for me.
Thank you. That's fantastic feedback, and I think really encompasses, you know, what we hope that you all get out of study abroad. I know there's kind of a cheesy quote that life begins at the end of your comfort zone, but I think there's real truth to that, and I think study abroad is a perfect example of that. I'm glad that you were able to take those lessons back to your life here in the U.S. I'd love to know, as our final question, what was the best part of your experience, and do you have any other tips or advice for somebody who's considering study abroad but might be apprehensive?
I can start. I would say like the best part of my experience
I'm having some audio issues. Is anybody else? Okay. Okay. Would anybody else like to answer that question? Sorry, I'm having some connectivity issues. Can you all hear me? Okay.
Oh, yes, we can hear you.
Go ahead, Adriana.
I would say the best part of my experience would just be how much I like learned and experienced just in general. I know that's kind of vague, but back home, like I mentioned, I'm an introvert. I'm also like, in all honesty, kind of a bit of a homebody. Like, I mean, part of that is like, to be honest, there's not a whole lot to do where I live. Like, you know, I don't live in a city. I don't live in a place where like there's a lot of stuff to do every night. But even then, like my life is very much, you know, like school and work and, you know, sometimes, you know, seeing people, but I just kind of stay home a lot. And before studying abroad, I was fine with that. And then I just learned and I experienced so much outside of my classes. And, you know, being in this city, immersed in like a city environment, which I didn't realize how much I would enjoy and thrive in, really made me realize like, you know, okay, I'm okay with like sometimes, you know, staying at home, but I do want more than that. So it's made the pandemic interesting, but you know, we are gonna get out of it someday. We don't know when that will be, but it will happen someday. And probably the best part of my experience was the realization that you know, I want to like live somewhere where I can be able to go out and experience stuff. Like I want to live in a city. Whereas before studying abroad, I was kind of terrified of living in a city, which made it difficult because the career path I want to go into is something that like most jobs are in the city. I want to go into book publishing. And that was always something that maybe held me back a little bit. Like, would I be able to, you know, just move to a city when I've not like lived in one my whole life? But now it's like the opposite mindset. It's like, wow, I can't wait until I can, you know, get into that career path and move into a city and start to explore and learn and experience like I was able to when I studied abroad.
That's great to hear. Yeah, now you've lived in one of the largest cities in the world, so you can do anything. Great. Well, Wade, feel free to add any questions that you have into the chat. Thank you to all of our alumni for your feedback. If anybody in attendance or watching this recording would like more information about AIFS Study Abroad and more importantly, more perspectives from our alumni, we do have a great list of alumni on our website that you can talk to from your study abroad location of interest. So you can hear firsthand about our students' experiences all over the world. We do have a student webinar series ongoing throughout this semester. So you're at one of our webinars now. Thank you for attending, but we do have programming over the next few weeks if you'd like more information on these topics. Our AIFS blog, our social media channels, YouTube, always have great content from our overseas staff, our alumni. We have a lot of great Instagram takeovers coming up with some of our resident directors around the world and our alumni ambassadors. And then we have an AIFS student resources and FAQ page. We are building this out in more detail, so keep checking back, but we do have some great, fantastic resources that we've compiled from our overseas staff and alumni to help answer frequently asked questions. And if you'd like more information, feel free to join our email list with this QR code or email us anytime, studyabroad@aifs.com. We can stop the recording now, but I can stick around for a few minutes if anybody has questions. Thanks again to our ambassadors and attendees today. We appreciate your time.